Everyone doing tonight? I want to ask folks to not be so far away. Who are you afraid of tonight? Come closer, please. We want to have an evening of discussion. We want to learn. And I have to say we are truly honored because we have a comrade who's visiting us from very far away. We didn't know if this was going to be a possibility for so many different reasons. We are aware of the heavy repression that our brothers and sisters in South Africa are facing, all because they are fighting for land, housing, and dignity. And tonight, even in the midst of this beast that is New York City, the center of finance and capital, we thought it was important to say that there are people, there are young people, there are workers, there are people who are struggling in New York City who are also in solidarity with our comrades of the shackdwellers movement of South Africa. So we wanted to welcome you all tonight, feel at home, and you are in a space that is of the left, that is openly anti-capitalist. Don't feel like you have to hide your thoughts and ideas. We welcome you to come back for other activities and events, and more importantly, to consistently engage in the struggle. Welcome to the People's Forum.
All right. Thank you, Manolo, and just wanted to add my welcome and say that we're so pleased and honored to have Zikode here, who's been a hero to many for many years. The People's Forum is just a little over 2 weeks old. We are a movement incubator for working class and marginalized communities. We hope that you will check out all of our offerings at peoplesforum.org. Sign up for our email list. Although we've just opened, we have a full raft of programming for you to check out. And so I'd like to introduce our comrade Idaline, who's going to be introducing our main speaker of the night.
Good day, everyone. So we already heard some amazing words of who's speaking today. But here's some concrete things. So Sabu is president and founding member of the shackdwellers movement, which I don't speak Zulu, but it's the Abahlali baseMjondolo. It's a social movement of people living in the slums of South Africa's major cities. He's the son of a single mother who was a domestic worker and is a dedicated husband and father. The Abahlali's movement is the largest social movement in South Africa, which is super interesting to me as I'm organizing with the Poor People's Campaign. I'm super hungry and knowing how to organize the poor. So we definitely want to learn all the details of how you've been organizing the poor in South Africa. As we heard, the organization has faced brutal repressions, including the assassination of some of its members. Sadly, even this summer, our comrade was faced with some life threats, so we're very honored to have you here with us. Overall, we're super grateful to welcome you to our space. Definitely write down your questions, so when we open up for Q&A, thank you so much, and welcome to the space, our comrade Sabu.
Thank you, Comrade Program Director. It's so wonderful to see many of you. I see familiar faces here. It makes me very happy. Thank you all for coming here and to listen to what I have to say. I want to extend my sincere gratitude to the People's Forum, folks within Popular Education Projects, all other folks that have co-organized this wonderful space. I also want to congratulate People's Forum for this wonderful space, and I've been speaking to PEP comrades this afternoon to say how wonderful this People's Forum space is. And I have warned that it needs to be looked after as a heritage to be cherished and protected for the future generation. So it is indeed a wonderful space to share ideas, and I hope that great ideas can be, can be built, from this space. Again, my name is Zikode. I am the founding, but also the elected president of the shackdwellers movement, Abahlali baseMjondolo. But having said that, the movement has dissolved all its structures, including my presidency, in the past 2 weeks, because the movement is undergoing a quiet and a peaceful transition as we speak, because of the repression that we are faced with, but also because the movement has been infiltrated. It is not surprising. It is part of the challenges all movements may have to go through when they emerge. It is important for us to be here to share some of the, not challenges only, but some of the successes we have been able to achieve over the past few years. So what I'm going to be talking about tonight is the living politics. The politics that has helped us survive all kind of repression. The politics that has carried me all the way from Durban to New York via Accra. I was in Accra a few weeks ago. And it's good to see some of the wonderful faces that were part of the convening in Accra. So, comrades, Abahlali baseMjondolo is one of the biggest social movements to have emerged in the post-apartheid South Africa. It's amazing, also to myself, to have learned that we've been able to navigate number of terrible challenges that has come on our way. But I will be talking about the growth of the movement as well. But I just want to dwell on our living politics. What it is a politic that we ourselves, the impoverished communities in slums and in shanty towns, have been able to found. It is a politic that is easy for us to understand, and we often call it a living politics, in a sense that everyone can understand. It is lived with the people that are involved in the struggle. It is a politic that does not speak to the big jargons that tends to confuse struggling communities. It is a politics that begins with us. It's a politics that is within our reach, within our means, within our understanding. It is a simple politics that talks to the day-to-day lives of ordinary men and women. It is a politics that talks to water cuts off, the politics that talks to the housing, the landlessness. It is the politics that talks to day-to-day life of ordinary people, such as the electricity, that we do not need electricity, we do not need water. But our lives needs electricity, needs water. It is our lives that needs homes, that need lands. Sometimes it is easy to talk about homelessness. But if you were to speak directly to the people who have been homeless, you know what it means, how it feels. So it's a difficult subject altogether. So, comrade, a human being is a human being whenever they may find themselves. There are no borders to the forces of oppression or to struggle and solidarity. We host comrades from around the world in our land occupation in South Africa, and in turn, comrades from our movement are warmly welcomed by comrades in countries like Brazil and here in the US. And I and two other comrades have had an opportunity to come to Ghana, where we met comrades from across Africa and visited Elmina Castle, where enslaved people were kept before being taken to Americas and the Caribbean for more than 400 years. It was a turning moment, for us to really rethink of slavery, where we have come, as a continent, as Black people, which is why today we are scattered all over the world. So we had to reserve, a moment of silence to rethink. And, some of the folks were saying, can we pay revenge? And it became like, a joke, what happened 400 years ago, one thinks of paying your revenge. Where are you going to pay your revenge? So we had that conversation. But the poison of oppression runs deep into the soil of wealth in which we find ourselves. But the seed of resistance are everywhere too. And sometimes they flower, and that beauty survives despite everything. We have long history of solidarity with comrades here in New York. When we have had to face attacks and assassination, our comrades here have always been with us, and you've stood firm with us, and we do want to salute that. And please continue to do that. Your solidarity has kept people out of prison, in their homes, in their lands, in their comforts. It is your solidarity that has made me also to stand firm today, despite all the challenges that one faces back home. So we will stand with you if you find yourself in a very similar situation, whenever you're confronting similar repression. When you need us, please send a message and we will be there for you. We believe in a two-way sort of solidarity. It would be fair for us to do whatever we can from the other side of the sea as well to extend the solidarity that may be needed. Times are changing, the world is changing. It may be good today. We don't know what the tomorrow holds for us. So it is time to always stand together. Our movement was born in a shack settlement in Durban in 2005. People from Kennedy Road settlement in Clare State took to the streets in protest after a piece of land that had been promised for public housing was sold to a private businessman for a private profit. We blockaded a road, a major road. When their elected representative responded by describing us as criminals and calling the police to attack us, we realized with shock that we were on our own. After this shock, series of serious discussions were held in settlements across Clare State that resulted in the formation of the movement a month later. So when Abahlali was formed, obviously it's a point that I always want to emphasize, that there wasn't any clever individuals that sat around the table and thought of building this movement. It was out of anger, hunger, and frustration. It was out of need, because when people remains in comfortable zone, there would be less thinking of this formation. That is why I am forever grateful for this wonderful space that will keep great minds together, keep thinking about the future and all about the forces that wants to keep us in darkness, the forces that wants to keep us without homes, without land, without protection, without affording the lives that we should be living. So since 2005, we have won many victories and survived a wave of serious repression. A number of our comrades have given their lives to the struggle, and we've made this sacrifice and committed. We have lost many comrades who continue to want to see a just, equal society. We've lost many comrades who struggled for a world in which men and women, children and everybody lives in peace and harmony. In April this year, our audit of members in good standing in Durban passed 50,000. We have branches on more than 40 land occupations in Durban and in 5 provinces across the country. Recently, our membership in rural areas, particularly the side of the Eastern Cape, closer to Durban, has been growing. Our movement is committed to building the democratic power of the oppressed from below. We do not accept that NGOs, academic and political parties, or the state should think for us, decide for us, without us. We are struggling to restore our right to think, discuss, decide, and act for ourselves. We are oppressed. We are opposed to all the forces that vandalize human dignity. Those forces include capitalism. So I was particularly happy to hear that we can freely say, down capitalism, down. Some folks remember that when Reverend Mavuso and Mazwi came a few years ago, comrades were shy to say, down capitalism, down. This is such a big monster. It's a terrible monster. You may not have seen it. You may yet to see how monstrous capitalism has been. So those forces include capitalism, which has always been a project of racism, unfortunately. So we are opposed to the idea that land should be bought and sold, and we struggle from below to allocate land on the basis of human needs rather than private profits. We've come up with a principle in Abahlali that the social value of land must come before its commercial value. And our lives as such must come before profits. So I think it is a message that should be made very important, how our humanity is so important to be compared to the private profits. So everything else would have to stop, and our humanity comes first. So our movement has grown so large and survived waves of repression, including torture, slander, the destruction of our homes, and repeated assassination, because we are committed to a living politic. Our movement belongs to its members. People who are elected into position of leadership are there to obey the membership. Leaders who do not obey the membership can be recalled by a decision taken in an open general assembly, which is why this has happened just 2 weeks ago. I find myself, without being a leader. I'm one of the collective that has been dissolved because the membership has taken over its movement. So I have always likened Abahlali as a sea, as a waves, in the sea, which rejects any trash. You put the trash on the sea, the waves will kick it out. So Abahlali has always been able to sort itself. We've received a number of offers from NGOs and academics, offering to mediate. Hey, can we facilitate? I used to say to them, no, the movement will clean itself. It's a matter of time. And this has happened very peacefully. So both structures of the National and Provincial Council of Abahlali have been dissolved, and an interim committee was put into place whose purpose is solely to prepare for an early Congress where leadership can be properly elected. So this has to happen within 30 days. It might not be realistic, but the membership have spoken. So an elected structure that has been compromised can be dissolved anytime in an open assembly. So we do not rush to sign members up. It takes a month or even years to join our movement. Democracy can be very slow and often very boring. And we've been very patient to live up to that. If an individual person approaches us, we will tell them to go back to their families and to their neighbors and to return when they have at least a minimum of 50 members to join Abahlali. Because one person signing up to Abahlali membership is not going to make difference. When people are facing Evictions, for instance. It is not the office of Abahlali that has to intervene and stop eviction or gentrification of any sort, but it is the neighborhood. So if the neighborhood is not built properly, communities are built. So you are not just becoming simply because you happen to have a neighbor and you simply call it a community. Communities are built. I mean, neighbors that don't speak to each other, that cannot be defined as a community. There has to be a community sense, to be a community. We expect neighbors to be greeting each other, to be talking to each other. That's what makes us a community. That makes us cities, that makes us nations. But without us engaging with one another, it doesn't really automatically make us communities. So, which is why it is important for us to take a view that building families is key for us to build a nation and a society that we want to become. When we are invited to share our politics with the people, we do not start with lots of political jargon, which many people often do. I was sharing with folks from PEP this afternoon that some of the folks we have worked with, they will quickly move to explain to us what is capitalism versus communism, socialism. All these Zim words that tend to confuse people on the ground. What capitalism has to do with ordinary men and women in the street who is homeless. Of course, that language is important, but it has to be relevant. It cannot be introduced to a person without light, without water. It just makes things worse. So our living politics starts where people are with their everyday lives, with their concerns about their homes, about water, about electricity, land, repression, and violence. Anyone can understand this politic and see that it is just and relevant to their own situation. We built our politics on this foundation. Dignity is at the center of our politics. For us, the dignity of human being is universal and non-negotiable. It is the immovable point from which resistance is built. From dignity, that is isitunzi, we move to courage and determination, and inkani as part of our greater resistance. The struggle is long and it is hard. It may not be achieved overnight, which is why we also take a little bit of time to focus on building courage and determination, because the struggle is long. It may take years to win the question of land and other challenges that our society faces today. People may be beaten and even be jailed. Lives may be lost. Therefore, we constantly work to build courage and determination. We are very aware that our struggle is founded on the strength of women. So in Abahlali, we are proud to have launched what we called a women's league, a space that is special for women, because women are special people in our struggle. They are very powerful. We have seen this also in many protests. Sometimes men will stand on the side of the pavement and pretend they are not part of the struggle when they see the police. But women don't care. They have demonstrated that they can be trusted. And of course, apart from many challenges and responsibilities that they have to carry at homes. But in our struggle, they have done amazing work. Sometimes when we have big events like our Unfreedom Day rally, sometimes we do not have money and we do not know how to handle catering, to put out tents. Women will come up with unbelievable plans. In the form of stock funds, those saving schemes. they will do amazing stuff. And sometimes we do not appreciate it, the amount of work efforts, because they have taken the struggle upon themselves. They have actually liberated men, within Abahlali. So we are very aware that our struggle is founded on the strength of women. So you cannot be radical if you do not work to build the strength and courage of women. You cannot be radical. We are facing serious repression in South Africa, especially in Durban. A number of our comrades have been assassinated and others have been murdered during protests and evictions. Everyone who joins our struggle accepts this risk. And we tell comrades from the onset when they sign up that you die here. So we make sure that people are clear about the terrain that they are entering, that it is not just risky, but we've buried comrades and we continue to bury comrades. That is made clear from the onset. But comrades will take that risk because they do not want to die slowly and surely. If they die, Dara will tell you what Mnigelo will say. You must die once, like a man. People must talk about you, especially good things. That's the words of one of our young leaders. We are not just dealing with a capitalist state here. We are not just dealing with a state that wants to take the place of the colonizers rather than doing away with the colonial system of oppression. We are also dealing with a gangster state. Our cities have been taken over by mafias and gangsters. Some of you will think that we still have leaders in some cities. Cities have long time been hijacked by organized criminals. We continue to see this every day when people within the high authority have no conscience, no love for their community, no love for their country. They are just there to make money to enrich themselves. We continue to see this. That is why our cities are militarizing. In our case, a number of cities have formed what they called anti-land invasion units. Cities are like militarizing. They've become very harsh on the people that they are meant to save. They have killed people. A number of our comrades are either killed by the police during the protest, the politicians and their hitmen, the gangsters. Thirdly, they are also killed by these anti-land invasion units, which our cities have had to empower themselves, to take over from the military groups and really arm in dealing with its citizens. Politics has become a way to get rich, and people are willing to kill or to do anything to become rich and to stay rich. We move from funeral to funeral. We bury our own dead with dignity that they were denied in life. Many of our comrades cannot sleep in their own homes or cannot leave their home after dark in the so-called democratic South Africa, in post-apartheid. Repression comes in waves. Attempts at co-opting or co-option of political parties and NGOs are permanent. It's easy to talk about civil society and think that we are all in one page. Some folks are there to make sure that they keep the status quo. They are funded to make sure. We have proof. We've seen this happening. If you were to talk about support and solidarity, we expect folks to walk with us, journey with us, not from front, not from behind, but at least walk side by side with us. Not to hijack our struggles in the name of support and solidarity, not to talk for us or on our behalf without us in the name of support and solidarity, that needs to be worked out very carefully. Everyone is needed. All the kinds of skills in the struggle is welcome. The work of academic is very crucial in our struggle. But progressive academics obviously will be academics that think within the popular masses. And their ideas have to be grounded and be worn by the popular masses. No matter how great the ideas you have, if they have not won any support within the popular masses, that idea is likely to fail. No matter how wonderful, great the idea is, if it does not have support, if it has not won the popular support, it is likely to fail, because whose life is it going to change? Whose words is it going to make difference without the people that are really suffering the oppression? So our insistence on our autonomy is always taken by elites as illegitimate, as a conspiracy, as something to be destroyed. We find that we are beneath the law, that we can be beaten, evicted, and killed with impunity. We find that are supposed to remain in dark corners, to remain silent. But we have to work hard to build our voice and emerge again. We find that we have want to participate in decision-making like all other people, and our commitment to our own dignity. Then we are taken as criminals. But despite everything, our movement has not just survived, but it has grown up. And it continues to grow despite all measures of leaders and activists. We continue to occupy land, to build homes and meeting halls, and to appropriate water and electricity. We continue to do all these amazing things, and people continue to remain within the movement. And we continue to remain a people's movement. And that's one thing we've been able to do. Despite all these difficulties, we remain a home and a hope for thousands of shackdwellers in the country and the impoverished people that find themselves marginalized. While the government, the political parties, and some NGOs are debating how to achieve land reform from above, we are achieving land reform from below. We don't wait for policymakers or politicians. We occupy vacant, unused land as a way to correct the imbalances of the past. Because we have found it very senseless, to continue talking about landlessness when we know there's plenty of land. And we've decided to occupy land. So most of the settlement that we worked in are land occupation, occupied by the people. Because for us, land is everything. We get food from the land. We build houses on the land. So land is very important. The government can neglect us because they don't even build us those state-assisted housing. But when we have land, at least we can build something. No matter how you call it, slum, squalor's condition, shacks, shanty town, but it's what we can afford, and we call that home. And we have developed our homes. We have had to connect water ourselves. Self-connection to electricity. We build roads on our own. This is all we can. We always say when the government is busy building for the elites elsewhere, we will do what we can within the means that we have. Because we have no choice but to live like human beings. So we got to come up with something. Sometimes that is taken as a crime, but it's very scary to understand how one defines crime. You know, when you are denied basic services, the right to the city, which is enshrined not only in national laws, but within the international laws. When you are denied, that is not seen as a crime. But as soon as you make intervention to that, suddenly you are a criminal. So we are very conscious about what is criminal and what is not. So thousands of people are living on a well-located land as a result of our struggle. Thousands of children are in good schools as a result of our struggle. Thousands of people have livelihood in shack settlements as a result of our struggle. So we are saying everywhere the struggle will open the road. In the struggle and in the land occupation, we are clear that comrades is a comrade and a neighbor is a neighbor without regards to where they were born or what language they speak at home. We refuse all attempts to divide the oppressed. We say unyawo alunampumulo, meaning a human being is a human being and will always be a human being wherever they find themselves. And there shouldn't be any human borders. It makes no difference if you speak isiZulu, isiXhosa, English, Latino. It doesn't matter where you were born. If you were born in Durban or in Bizana, if you came from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Mexico, or anywhere else, if you are a man or a woman, if you are a gay or a lesbian, you remain a human being. Your humanity is not defined in terms of your gender, color, creed, religion, whatsoever. We make that very clear because that comes with the kind of a society we want to build tomorrow. But sometimes it's difficult to find the balance, in this. I was sharing with folks from PEP that many of our comrades are very religious people. But we are also conscious that many people take advantage of your kindness. People tend to exploit your kindness, your humanity. So as much as we encourage this spiritual involvement in the struggle, because at times it comes with the kind of a society we want to build, but that should not also compromise that the movement is radical. We want to remain radical, but at the same time, you don't want to build thugs. You do not want to build lawlessness at the same time. But at the same time, you do not want people to exploit your kindness. Sometimes it's difficult to find those balance within the struggle. Because the kind of a society that we want to build is a society where equality, justice, respect and dignity becomes the order of the day. A person should not be judged by their socioeconomic status. They should be judged by their humanity, how they relate to each other. That's what makes them more human. So if Donald Trump, for instance, is your enemy, he is our enemy indeed. In every country, every politician that tries to divide the oppressed is the enemy of the people. There is only one world we must share. The wealth, the cities, and the land must be shared. The right to participate in discussion and to make decision must be shared. This is the mission that confronts our generation. So it has not been easy to struggle within our movement. It has not been easy. There are different seasons that comes to confront us. Sometimes it is always nice to be part of a bigger family of comrades, because comrades have no borders. That is why one speaks here with a mouthful confident, because Abahlali is now built everywhere. You know what Abahlali is? It is our own philosophy. A proud spirit of belonging to a collective. It has made us proud because it has made us realize that we are human beings. Because we define humanity in relation to others. And we say your humanity is not complete in isolation to others. So you cannot be a human being in an island. So what makes us more human is the manner in which we relate to others. So we spread the idea of Abahlali, which is a kind of the spirit of Ubuntu, a spirit of humanity, that we hope one day we can humanize the world. We can build a more human world where everyone lives in dignity, where peace becomes the order of the day. So I do want to conclude, comrades, my presentation by saying our commitment to the cause we have taken comes with a high price. We will be tested. Our commitment will be tested in various ways, in different forms. Of course, in different scales. So the forces that divides the working class and the impoverished continue to do that work in order to maintain control and to benefit from their own economic system that they have created to benefit themselves than any other human being. So we are on the mission to unite the impoverished and the working class. The mission to unite trade unions, popular grassroots organizations, progressive democratic forces. Because our world is globalizing. And we must build a people-to-people front. Things are getting worse everywhere. We see this. I am here in the United States ahead of the UN General Assembly. So heads of state are meeting quite often, but how often do we meet as people? What alternative space have we established? Because the system is moving very fast to take decisions for us and on our behalf. In the name of peace and democracy, without us having endorsed or said a word about how we want to live our lives. So we get told how to live. So I want to challenge you, comrades, that a space such as these people's space should be utilized to its fullest form to transform the society, our day-to-day thinking. That the system continue to think 24/7, 24 hours. And we often have breaks about rethinking politics. So let us build our power from below. Let us empower the powerless. Let us organize the unorganized. Let us conscientize those who are conscious. Because to many people, it is business as usual. Up until we find ourselves homeless. We find ourselves without a job. So we are hoping that in the United States, there will be also a possibility that no one remains homeless in the land of so plenty. A few years ago, I was told that there's in fact more houses, empty houses than the homeless people. You know, when I narrated that back to South Africa, hey, folks, they were like, hey, can we change with those folks there? And should they come to South Africa and let's go show them how to make use of facilities? You know, facilities are there. But I'm hoping that it's going to change. Unfortunately, it will not change itself. It needs cadres, committed individuals like you to bring about the change that is required. So you will be tested for the cause you have chosen yourself. And as a result, you need to remain strong and make sure that you continue the fight that is necessary. So we say another world is possible and another world is necessary. If you want to live, our families and our generation, in secured homes. By homes, I mean our education system. By homes, I mean our healthcare system. By home, I mean saving our jobs, decent jobs. And for those who continue to be exploited, oil prices, food prices and everything rises up. But you don't see salaries and wages go up. How are we supposed to meet the demands? So something needs to be done. So I want to thank you, comrades, for coming, and hopefully we can interact more. If there are any questions of clarity and so on, I may not have touched some of the things that you may have expected me to talk about. So I want to thank you.
Hey. So we're gonna welcome you to sit here while we take questions. But before we get to questions, we're gonna have some reflections from one of our OG, Willie Baptist, who is a founding member of the University of the Poor and Popular Education Project. He also has been organizing for many of years across the U.S. homeless communities. So welcome.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like for us to give another hand to Abahlali and to Sabu. He's been a real inspiration for those of us who have been organizing among the poor and homeless in this country. The problems that he spoke to in South Africa are problems that are becoming globalized. And our estimate of the problem is absolutely crucial, that it has to be, that it be accurate in terms of reflecting the problem. We got a big problem, so we need a big solution. This is a global struggle, and the problems of poverty and homelessness is growing here in this country, in the richest country in the world. It's globalized, And since the 2008 crisis, homelessness is growing, has been growing by leaps and bounds. Statistic has it that anywhere between 5 to 10 million people are becoming added to the homeless ranks as a result of families, head of household being between the ages of 29 to 30, 34, if I recall correctly. They're moving back to their parents. That's homelessness. I went to a talk at Ithaca College, outstate New York. We talked to about 300 students and organizers there about the problems of poverty and so on. And after we finished, they thanked us. And one lady got up, beautiful young lady, looked student-like. She got up and thanked us for what we had to say about the problems of homelessness and poverty here in these United States. And she said, I have to say this, my name is Megan. I graduated from Ithaca College, magna cum laude, and I'm homeless. This is a white student, young lady with children, and the problems of poverty are growing by leaps and bounds here. I wanted to say that because I think the experience of Abahlali is such an inspiration, and it also embodies something that's very important, because part of the miseducation that we've been given about the poor and homeless, that they are helpless, that somehow their problems is their fault, something that they didn't do, their indiscretions, their laziness, that somehow they're helpless. But Abahlali is a proof of the fact that poor and homeless families, contrary to the stereotypes, can think for themselves, can speak for themselves, can fight and organize themselves, and they can lead not only themselves but the nation. And we learned a lot in our discussion today, and every time I'm with Sabu, you can see the wisdom and the sincerity and commitment that this brother has put out, has developed into. I've known him for some time now, and I'm glad that he's able to come. He is living under the threat of his life, has been threatened for the things he's doing. What I want to do is ask a couple of questions, and then we can get into questions and answers, or questions that you might have. But I wanted to make those comments as a way of introduction. There's a lot of similarities in terms of what they have been doing over the years, and the struggles that we've been undergoing here in the United States, that we're organizing the poor and homeless here. And we've been able to, we pay close attention to the struggles of Abahlali, Dara, and Chris did help put, yeah, it's Chris right there. He put together this video called Dear Mandela, and it was an organizing tool because it actually introduced us to each other, and we begin to learn from each other's struggle. But I think the thing that's very important today, given that this problem is growing even much more rapidly today and on a global scale, you know, is to pick out certain points and lessons from your experience that you can speak a little bit more on. There's a difference between mobilizing bodies for a rally and for a march than organizing and moving people and building community. And clearly the experience of Abahlali was founded around 2005, right? Has been able to stick and stay the course. And not only that, but they've been able to grow throughout some 5 provinces in South Africa, some 55,000 members. They're growing. This is poor and homeless families who are setting up their own encampments in their own neighborhoods and so on and so forth, and making a fight. The first question I have is, why have people who have been evicted, who are simply trying to survive, to build their own homes and housing and make do with what they got, why have Abahlali become such a threat that the repression has happened and you guys have lost lives as a result of their struggles? If you can speak to that question. I have a couple other questions, but I'll start with that one.
Thank you, comrades Willie. Abahlali have become a threat to the authorities for a couple of reasons, but few important reasons is that organizing outside the ruling party or organizing outside the ANC has been seen as a conspiracy, a crime. So that's the first reason why we are crushed, that we have organized outside the state control, we've organized outside the ANC. And the question, who the hell are you? It's an often asked question in South Africa. Who the hell are you that you want to meet the mayor? You know, you dirty shack dwellers. Because if you are poor, you are taken as a person who has no brain, who cannot think, who would not have any respect of any authority. But the second thing why the state has become very harsh on us, we have successfully named and shamed corrupt, high-ranking officials. Your councillors, your mayors, your ministers. So when it comes to anyone tampering with our rights, we have no so-called Madam Speaker, Madam Mayor, or Your Honorable. We don't have those names. So we give respect where one deserves. By successfully organizing the shackdwellers, the slum dwellers, the impoverished, that on its own has really become a thorn on the ruling party. So, and the fear is that we might become a political party one day, but we are treated worse than the opposition parties. Because opposition parties, they would say, well, it is their job to oppose, let them do their job. But of course, our politics is very unique. And I don't think the concept of social movement is clearly understood in South Africa. Our art of organizing is really unique, and a lot of people are scared what we may become. You know, when people talk about civil society, they only expect NGOs, few clever individuals. But I can tell you, authorities are scared of the organized poor masses. This is what we must remember.
Okay, I mentioned earlier the difference between mobilizing and organizing. Obviously, you guys are organizing. You're building communities. And that's very important because, as you said earlier, this is going to be a protracted struggle. And to build organization that can stick and stay for the long haul is going to be very important. And I wanted you to speak a little bit more about your experiences, about what you talked to us earlier with the Poverty Education Project meeting that we had earlier. You talked about the art of organizing. How do you organize among the poor and dispossessed? How do you organize among the bottom section of the population? If you can talk about some of the lessons there with regard to, say, the role of art, song, and culture, if you can talk about that. The role of religion. What role did those things play in your organizing approach, which I think has a lot of lessons for how we have to begin to consider organizing here in this country. So if you can speak to those, Sabu. And then.
Yes, thank you. The role of culture is very key in our organizing strategy. I spoke about having a women's league, as a space for women's empowerment within the organization. But we also have the youth league where we develop cadres, where we build second layer of leadership, and that's very important because we are getting older and older every day. So a good leader is a leader that is able to leave behind other leaders. And sometimes it's not easy to do that. So while we have a women's league, amazingly so, the Women's League have begun Abahlali's Choral Society. Amazing group that has actually recorded its first album from the slum. And when you ask them, how did you think about this? They said to us, look, it is a symbol to express our appreciation to Abahlali. We have nothing to give, but our deep happiness that is within us. There's no other way to thank the movement other than to express this sincere gratitude in a form of a music. So that group has actually been adopted by the national leadership to make them become the Abahlali National Choir. We work very tall. Thea will tell you that we had the ESCR meeting in Durban. Guests from around the world were welcomed by this wonderful women's choir, as a way of expressing their gratitude. So, that's the way culture works. You will not believe in Abahlali, even in the midst of all these difficulties and challenges. You'll find people singing, chanting, and smiling as a source of energy, courage, and determination. It's not Sabu's ideas. It is grounded from popular masses. Once people like something, they develop their own ways that really nourishes every effort that they make. So culture plays a very important role because, as I said earlier on, it is important that you do not impose new jargons and new terminology. But as long as you are able to facilitate a space where people can be free, they will show you amazing stuff. If you can master how to allow them, to have that free space, free thinking, and to bring about ideas that will sort of bring them together. Of course, the religion plays a very important role because the work we do can be very distressful. I mean, you can crash. You have to somehow get your source of energy somewhere. And unfortunately, we believe that there's a creator, a universal creator. So reaching out to him or her, it's through different forms. That is why all religions are welcome in Abahlali. We may have a dominant Christianity, but it doesn't stop Muslims from feeling at home and do their own prayers. Sometimes we ask other religion to pray. And sometimes, of course, the silence prayer that enables everyone to connect one way or the other with their God. I'm not a church person, but each time my neighbors go to church, I get into my red regalia that Thea has today. And when they ask me, I'm going to church, because the work that I do, duty to God, duty to my country. And one of our leading bishop in the country, Bishop Robin Philip, said one day, Abahlali makes me a better church. God is not in those four corners of the room. And of course, those who believe in Jesus, they will tell you Jesus was never neutral. He was always biased with the poor. That's what the progressive theology will tell you about. Yeah.
Okay, now you want to take it? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I just want to say that, that struggle is not something way over there. That struggle is our struggle. Their defeat is our defeat. Their victory is our victory. The forces we up against are the same forces that's driving the brothers and sisters in South Africa down into homelessness and poverty, are the same forces that are driving more and more of the American people in this country, the richest country, into poverty and homelessness. We have to learn from each other. We have to support each other. We have to see each other as families. And this is something that is really important if we're going to be victorious in the struggle that we're trying to raise ahead. So I really want to, again, thank Sabu for his bravery, his commitment, and his wisdom. This brother is deep, man. All right, thank you.
So we're going to open it up for questions. You can just raise your hand. I'll pass you the mic. I think these work as well. Probably. Sure. They're just going to put them on. Okay.
Hi, Sabu. I had just was wondering if you might be able to share with us a little bit about how your family is doing during this time. And, just the sort of, Chris and I were filming when you were also in hiding in 2009, and just wondering, how would you say we can offer any kind of support? What would you like to see us doing in this very difficult situation? Because sometimes it's hard for us to know from here.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
It's on.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Dara, for that wonderful question. Well, in times like this, we would really love your support in different forms, of course, in different levels. Part of that will be just to say something that violence cannot be tolerated in any of our society. Just to say something that violence breeds poverty and misery. and it cannot be afforded anywhere in the world. You know, something that says so. We would encourage you to obviously do the media work, write to your local media, you know, short articles that raise this awareness. Write to the South African embassy here if there is one, raise this as a concern. Because if you do nothing about it, the wheel is turning. Then there's a price for that silence. Just to, you know, just to create that awareness. And part of it, obviously, is to create Abahlali friends. You know, back in 2009, you guys were amazing. You know what happened during the similar repression? There was a protest in New York. There was a protest in Budapest, Hungary. There was a protest in London. And it shook the world. And what happened? We were invited by the US consulate in Durban. You know what they said to us? What the hell is going on here? As if they care. And then we realized later that because you shook them, but also there were leading scholars that signed petitions, you know, that went around the world. Here's Rob. And you know what the embassy was saying? But how did you get hold of all this bunch of people that signed the petition? And quickly realized that it was not about concern about our safety. The US government was concerned about how did we organize, you know, these heavyweights of academics that signed the petitions, and of course the protests that took place around. And what happens 2 months later, I was given an award called the International Visitors Leadership Program. I was meant to be here on a state visit and protocols. But then I chose the other NGO style rather, as a token of escaping South Africa. So the US government at that time was sending a message to the ANC that if you see Abahlali as rubbish to be terminated, we see value in Abahlali. And that did a lot of work. You know, when I went back to South Africa, the first call I got from the intelligence was, where have you been? What did you tell those people? But suddenly I was called Mr. Zikode. You know, I earned this title. You know, Mr., not even doctor. It was something that I did not deserve. But suddenly the ducks backed off. So this is very important for us. But obviously on the 8th of October, Abahlali are planning a big mass protests to expose, deal with repression, and support at least, just to make sure that people come out in their numbers. I mean, we have masses. We have no worry about that act of organizing, but sometimes resources are scarce, you know, to get people into the venue. But it's a message that we want to send, not just for Abahlali, for all the other activists that have been killed and nobody said a word. So in the province where I come from in KwaZulu-Natal is a bloody province. The government has set up a number of commissions to look into the political killing, root cause of political killing. The Morana Commission has been set up with recommendations that we don't know whether or not they will be implemented. The head of state has said what he calls as the interministerial committee, also to look into the killing of people. But in those killings, they do not mean Abahlali members, because we don't count in that society. They mean only politicians within the mainstream politics who are killed, because killing becomes accepted and as a daily bread. So, you know, if folks will do something from this side, you know, write letters, articles, even to the head of state, your embassy, the media work, that would be awesome.
Okay, we have another question.
So, thank you, brother. We bring you greetings from the Take Back the Land movement. Special hello from Max Rameau and M. Adams. Much solidarity. One of the things I'd like to ask you, and Dara kind of touched on my question already. You know, in 2014, we put a bunch of folks in front of the South African consulate and raised hell, for lack of a better way to say it. At the same time, we sent a young college student to Geneva through the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty with a petition and garnered a letter from 6 rapporteurs. Is that effective? And if it is, we have 11 rapporteurs at the time willing to write a letter of solidarity to the government, and I would ask you who to direct it to. So I want to know, I guess you kind of answered that question, that it is effective, but then I guess my follow-up question is, what else can we do? That's an easy lift for us, Sabu. So tell me what else we can do, because I think there is serious solidarity in this country with your movement.
Thank you so much, Rob. You know, I was struck by the organization called Take Back the Land in the United States, whether or not this was possible. So having met the folks from Take Back the Land, we really appreciated your insight and, you know, ongoing support. Obviously, what I've said, you know, I think that will be enough for us. It made difference, you know, those protests, those networking, and it becomes the conversation here. It matters the most, especially when ordinary people are concerned. So I think the government would have to do something. You know, you are still respected in the world as the United States. So what you say goes. Our president will really want to be good boys and good girls of the United States. And yeah, your voice will really carry weight. Yes, organizing around, you know, those petitions, sending letters to, you know, South Africa's High Commissioner here, or even writing straight to Pretoria to President Cyril Ramaphosa, who we think he's only worried about his own economic policies he's taking, and obviously he wants to remain in good terms, and he's worried about his reputation. So I hope that can really do something. So we'll appreciate that.
Do we have any further questions? Okay.
Hi, thank you for telling us more about what's happening in South Africa. I was struck by the fact that you were saying that there has been a kind of an infiltration in the movement and a sort of disassembling of the movement. If you could tell us a little bit more about that, because it would be helpful to see how, you know, these things get demobilized, and then what's happening in terms of your own strategies to counter that.
Yes, thank you for that. I mean, it's something that that's not easy to talk about, but obviously it's deep. Part of the strategy, I have been intimidated by all kinds of forces, the police, you know, the crime intelligence. I mean, they told me that I only have 2 weeks to survive. A hit has been confirmed on me to carry out the assassination, and a person's name who was hired to carry the hit has been named. You know, there were clear details that I should be removed. But of course, nothing was done to protect me, despite knowing the details of the planned hit. So I had to go underground on my own. But guess what? I mean, within the space of 2 months after I have disappeared, then the movement was infiltrated, which is something that has actually been going on for a while. But since I was, you know, removed from the public, you know, domain, then trusted comrades were actually working for the ruling party. We've seen this coming. They would be offended when we say down with the mayor down. They could not pretend. And we realized that they were working for the government. But also there's a number of signs and evidence to that. But because they are minority, but they hold some bureaucratic power within Abahlali office, they did not have popular support in the communities. So we were able to capture that very early. So, but then things turned out very ugly within the space of 2 months when I was removed from the leadership, and the ANC was able to do as it pleased. And suddenly, the organization was weak. There was infighting within the leadership to a point that the General Assembly had to be called to correct that, and the extent of damage had to, the membership had to resolve that the leadership be dissolved because it cannot be repaired. So that's the extent of damage. But then it was clear, I mean, when I was negotiating my safety with the police, they were very smart to say, to guarantee my protection, provided that I agree to be placed on what they call as state witness protection. So my life was guaranteed. But since I have tendered down, then I became very vulnerable. And I had to go underground on my own. And because they have scared me enough, I've never been this scared in my life, Jared. I've been through this, as a game, I've survived this. But this time around, there are something seriously happened that I've not shared to many comrades. I've seen that coming, but for like past 2 months, I had sleepless nights. I don't fear death, but because now I've grown enough and I'm becoming matured, I have to think about my kids, my family. I'm now a family man. I have to take responsibility. So the worry was about, what is it that I have not accomplished in life? Living under the shadow of death, and the very same people who are meant to protect you are actually telling you you can be killed anytime, but do nothing to actually protect you. But after a while, I realized that some of these folks are working in the office of the mayor. They are not the police as they described to me. So it's happened a few months ago, but I had to open a criminal case of intimidation just on Wednesday when I came here, and things are going to be nasty as I go back, because some of the things these so-called police told me, they told me stories that I did not ask. For instance, they were saying the mayor is being investigated for corruption charges. Apparently there was a 27 million rand that went missing, which was meant for slum dwellers, water and sanitation. So they were telling me that the mayor can be arrested any time. And I had to say those things in public. So whether making them fighting amongst themselves, or saying all this stuff, I don't know what's going to happen. But again, the Public Protector's Office, one of the Chapter 9 institutions in South Africa, had to be reported, and also they sort of forced me to open a charge against the mayor. Again, who the hell is this for, to charge the mayor? So those are the questions that I need to answer back. Because these are big people, holy people. Dirty folks from the slums cannot tell them what to do. Unfortunately, we have to tell them that this is wrong. So I was surrounded by a bunch of criminals, including the police, that I could not trust. So somehow I'm surviving, because these people would even guarantee myself, and they would ask for my location. They know where I stay, they know where I work. So I had to switch off the phone, because firstly I trusted them, because they told me everything. But few weeks later, I realized that they were the very same people who could carry this murder anytime. So I'm not safe. So I could not trust anybody within the security forces. So the family is devastated. Didn't know what to do. But I would not share everything with the family. I do not want to scare them, make them even more vulnerable. They've been through a lot already. So I've been living under the shadow of death. So hopefully, with the support of comrades from here and elsewhere, I may be able to go back in full force and continue my work. Because we all know that one day we will die. We don't know how, but we just have to do what we have to do. That is not compromised. So yeah, I was really vulnerable. This is a political assassination. I was shot from my in fact, this was an end of my political career. Thea will tell you, when we last met, I was like shivering, seeing that is imminent, could not sleep, having to think around that. I was lonely, also knowing that my own comrades that are closer to me are working for the enemy. The very same security agencies that are meant to protect me can do harm on me. So it's been that difficult.
We have time for one more question. One more question. If not, my question to you. So, before you said that you did a chant in the U.S. and we didn't follow along with the capitalism of Bosch, can you do it all to close us?
Chanting?
Yeah. Yeah.
I do not want to put the folks into trouble
Oh,
because I'm
come
going to leave this
on.
country.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Down capitalism, down.
Down.
Phansi capitalism, phansi.
Hansi.
Amandla.
Away to.
That means power to the people. The people united will never be. The people will never be.
Defeated.
The people
United.
will never be.
Defeated.
Amandla.
Away to.
Qina, New York City, qina.
Cleaner.
Be strong, New York City, be strong.
Be strong.
Viva the People's United States of America, viva.
Working class.
Thank
Viva. Thank you all.